where we discuss your favorite football team, the Miami Dolphins. You are joining us, Jake, Mendel, and Marek Brave, as we go through one of our favorite segments, mostly because it's our first segment, but we are going to call this Down to the Details. As the Miami Dolphins work through the offseason, our goal is to figure out where each position group is, what makes them successful. So Marek and I are going to answer 4 very, very hard questions in each one of these videos we do. Today, we're starting with cornerbacks. So our goal is we're going to discuss where do things stand with this cornerback group, what makes them good, what needs to happen this offseason, and what does success look like on the field. Marek, before we even get into it, I just want to ask, how are you doing, my friend?
Man, I am doing great. For those of you who have been watching another Dolphins podcast on Houtz's channel, you may have noticed I've upgraded my camera, upgraded my internet speed. I didn't want to look like an idiot on the YouTube anymore. So we're ready to rock and roll, and hopefully there's no lagging, no cutting out, no skipping, no catching up, none of that crap. We're ready to discuss the Miami Dolphins football team, and what a time to be a Dolphins fan, Jake. This team is on the rise, and I'm looking forward to 2023 for many reasons, but one of the reasons is this brand new YouTube show that I get to do with you. So, shall we dive in?
Oh, we're diving right in. And a lot of people, everybody loves the quarterback, everybody loves the offense. We wanted to build up to that. And I think starting with cornerbacks is pretty exciting, Marek, because this is a group that had a complete facelift and it only involved maybe 1 or 2 re-signings. The defense is obviously going to look different with Vic Fangio calling the shots, who is now the highest paid defensive coordinator in the NFL. But Marek, where should we start? You want to just jump in with Jalen Ramsey? Do we just get the good guy out of the way first?
Yeah, I think that's the big offseason addition that everybody wants to talk about, ourselves included. Uh, the trade went down not too long ago. Jalen Ramsey from the Los Angeles Rams to the Miami Dolphins for a third round pick and Hunter Long. First of
Two
all, we
Hunter
fleeced
Longs.
the Rams. Yeah, 2 Hunter Longs essentially. But we fleeced the Rams on that deal. I don't think you're going to find somebody who would argue to the contrary. I think there were a lot of people on Twitter that were trying to see what would happen if they plugged the trade into Madden, and Madden declined the trade every single time. But Madden's not real life, and in real life, Chris Greer got the deal done. Jalen Ramsey to the Miami Dolphins for a third round pick and Hunter Long. That's a steal.
And one of the weird parts about the entire dialogue surrounding Jalen Ramsey is people seem a little concerned that he's getting up there in age, but this is a guy who's 28 years old, right? He is just in the middle of his prime. We've had cornerbacks in the past. I don't want to say his name too loud in case, members of his family come hunting me down, but Brent Grimes is a perfect example. Some guy who came in, it was a 1 year prove it deal at the time after his time with the Atlanta Falcons came to an end. But that's just one example of, hey, just because someone's a little older, at Jalen Ramsey's not even old, it doesn't really give us a clear indication if somebody is going to go on a downward spiral. So, Marek, I just want to ask you, what does Jalen Ramsey bring to this defense as a whole, and specifically to this cornerback group? Because personally, I like to call him a cornerback who is in a linebacker's body.
Yeah, I mean, first, I must address the fact that you're saying that 28 years old is old now.
I'm
I get it.
28.
You're 28. I'm 36, about to be 37 years old. And if 28 is old, then put me in the grave because I'm significantly older than 28 years old. But Jalen Ramsey, what does he bring to the table, man? I think you nailed it on the head right there. He is a cornerback in a linebacker's body. After the trade went down, I went back and, you know, first and foremost, Jalen Ramsey has been one of my favorite personalities in the NFL since he entered the league. Being a professional wrestler like I have been for the last 20 years, I kind of gravitate to the people who talk smack because that's a very big part of a professional wrestler's job. And Jalen Ramsey is like the king of talking smack, at least on the defensive side of the ball. Side note, maybe the king of talking smack on the offensive side of the ball is Tyreek Hill. So we got like the two best trash
Perfect.
talkers in the NFL on the Miami Dolphins now. But Jalen Ramsey, he brings that swag. He brings that high motor, that high energy. He brings the ability to play man, play zone, drop back, play as a safety, come up, play as a linebacker. Like you said, he is a willing and able tackler, which is not something that you can say about all cornerbacks in the
Brent Grimes.
NFL. Brent Grimes, Byron Jones, Jalen Ramsey. He's just a tough dude, and I think he'll fit right in with the Miami Dolphins. I think he'll fit right in with the new mindset of our new defensive coordinator. Like you said, highest paid defensive coordinator, highest paid coordinator on either side of the ball, I think, in the NFL, Vic Fangio. So really looking forward to Jalen Ramsey joining this defense, and I think all he's got to do now is pick a number, right?
That it's that simple, right? I think that is it. I don't think he has given us a number yet. What was he in LA? I think five?
Number 5. He wore number 20 in Jacksonville, and number 5 in LA, so we'll see.
Interesting, interesting. Most teams would be pretty excited to bring in Jalen Ramsey as their number one cornerback, but the Dolphins are in such a unique spot, Merrick, because now they have two of the six largest quarterback contracts in the league when you look at Jalen Ramsey and Xavien Howard. And man, we can talk about the talent both of these guys have and the synergy they're going to have. I hate the word synergy. I'm sorry about that one. But for me, man, Xavien Howard, he had groins injury, plural, groins injuries last year.
Multiple. He
Uh,
he only have 2 of them, and he injured as many as you could possibly injure.
Oh man, I couldn't imagine. But I go back to 2 years ago, that Jacksonville Jaguars game that in London, that was one of the worst games I've ever seen in my life. One of the biggest issues with the team that game was the cornerback group. Miami had nothing. Xavien Howard was hurt. Byron Jones was hurt at the time. What this does is if there are a couple games where X needs to be out, Jalen Ramsey needs to be out, you still have a number one cornerback that you need to go against. And to me, I think that is so important because you did see the difference, even with Xavien Howard off the field, what that does to this cornerback group. Now, things might be a little different considering that the cornerbacks might not have uh, I don't know if it's a higher workload, but I mean they were trusted to do a lot of things in this, single high man-to-man defense, and things might soften up a little bit, but overall, I think having a safety net for injuries and knowing that when you have both, you're going to be a dominant defense. That to me is what sticks out first.
Yeah, and I there's a lot of people on Twitter that are saying that Xavier Howard is toast, he's cooked, he's washed. People forget that Xavier Howard, like you said, played on multiple groin injuries last season. Like having one groin injury makes it tough enough to sprint and change direction. But now imagine having two. And so you don't even have a good side. You can't even lean on your right side or your left side because both your groins are hurt. So he was injured. He played the entire season without his running mate. Byron Jones was nowhere to be found. And I don't think that was something that was anticipated from Dolphins fans, but also from Dolphins players. If you remember, Byron Jones was expected to be back week 1, and then he wasn't. And then the story changed. He'll be back week 4, and then he wasn't. And then it's like, okay, well, he'll be back for that West Coast trip when the Dolphins go play the Niners and the Chargers back to back. And then he wasn't. So all year long, Xavier Howard was having to pick up the slack while having a very serviceable undrafted rookie, Cater Kohu, which I'm sure we'll get into here in a little bit, on the other side. But Cater Kohu is not a Byron Jones. He's not a veteran in the NFL. So Xavier's trying to mentor this young cornerback while trying to be the number one corner on the other side while being injured. That's just a lot for somebody to handle. Like you said, he is getting up there in age, but if I'm putting money on it, I'm betting on Xavier Howard to bounce back, have a fantastic year in 2023. I think he'll resemble more of the Xavier Howard from years past and not the 2022 version of Xavier Howard that we got with two injured groins held together by popsicle sticks and prayers.
It was a tough situation, man, and it was just compounded when you consider before the season even started, Nick Needham goes down with a season-ending injury. Trill Williams goes down with a season-ending injury. Those are two guys who are going to be back this year. So personally, the key there is how can they recover from their injury? We already are seeing, posts on Twitter about the recovery. You mentioned Cater Kohu. He started 13 games as a rookie last year. And then this is kind of an interesting group here. It might just be because I'm a big football nerd and these guys aren't, superstars, but there's going to be some interesting battles here because you have Keon Crossan, a vet, a special teams pro. He is a 26-year-old. I think he came from New England. That he kind of filled that role as a locker room guy, as a leader, because he was just a little older older in a group, Merrick, that going into this year, there isn't going to be a single starter under the age of 30, and yet we're calling it an old group. We also have Noah Igbenogany, who is about to enter his fourth season. And the only reason I find that interesting is because I think he's only a month older than Trill Williams, who was drafted last year. He is so young still and so raw. I think if the Dolphins wanted to get rid of him, it'd be a $3 million cap hit either way. So I do think he's going to get every chance he needs to succeed. So that's another guy I want to keep my eye on. And Merrick, just recently, Justin Bethel, 32, as you told me before the show, an all pro special teamer returns to the team. So you hear those names. What's one guy that maybe training camps, spring OTAs that you instantly want to see? I just want to see them on the field.
Yeah, I think the guy in that group, outside of Cater, because I feel like Cater is a different animal in the cornerback group compared to those other guys. Because Cater played a full season last year, he went above and beyond expectations, and I think we're looking at him to maybe lock down that nickel corner spot, cover the slot, if you will. So outside of him, the guy that you mentioned that I'm most excited to see is Trill Williams, because last offseason it felt like every day the beat writers for the Dolphins were tweeting about how impressive Trill Williams looked in the offseason program. He was making splash play after splash play on defense, and it looked like he was going to be a big contributor to the Dolphins defense in 2022. Unfortunately, he suffers that season ending injury. I think it was a knee injury, ACL possibly, which kept him out for the entire season. But he's young. He was on the up and up, and I'm excited to see what he can do when given a role in the 2023 defense, especially under defensive coordinator Vic Fangio.
So the question becomes, we're raving about him. What gives this group an edge? And Merrick, I was kind of just giving a 10,000 foot view. Jalen Ramsey, Kader Kohu, those are the only guys who aren't entering at least their third season with the Miami Dolphins. I thought that was pretty impressive when you consider some sort of consistency with this group. So when you look at the entire list there, the entire laundry list, what gives this group an edge?
So I think uh, there are a couple things that give this group an edge. Like we talked about earlier with Jalen Ramsey, I think they're just going to have a swagger about them. They're going to have a confidence about them heading into these games. Mike Clay, I don't know if you saw earlier on Twitter today, Mike Clay of ESPN, he's kind of a big fantasy football guy. And he always has a bunch of stats and he compiles a lot of these stats together into spreadsheets. And he put out his team rankings uh, based on how these teams look on paper right now, given, we still have free agency going on, we still have the draft going on. But right now, he ranked offenses and defenses 1 through 32, and the number one ranked defense on paper, the Miami Dolphins, and the number one ranked cornerback group in the entire NFL, the Miami Dolphins. So they are projected to be a top, if not the top defense in the 2023 season so far. And we'll see what happens throughout the rest of free agency and when the draft hits. But they know that. They're already confident. They're going to go into these games with that confidence, and sometimes confidence is key. So you have somebody like Vic Fangio who's going to corral that confidence and not let them get too big of a head or too big of heads or too big of an ego. But they're going into these games knowing that they're good and that they're expected to be great, and they want to live up to those expectations. So you got that, and then also I think they're going to be a defense that forces a lot of turnovers. And I think this cornerback group is going to be responsible for a lot of interceptions. Xavien Howard led the league in interceptions just a couple years ago. Jalen Ramsey, always a big number interception guy in the past. That's dipped last year and the year before, but that's because they don't really target him a lot. But what are you going to do? You're just going to target Xavien Howard now? And if you don't want to target Xavier, you're going to target Jalen Ramsey now. Like both of these guys will pick off a lot of balls this year because you're going to have to throw at somebody. So I'm looking at some high interceptions from both Ramsey and Xavier Howard this upcoming season. So between their confidence, their swagger, and their ball hawking ability, this is going to be a really formidable group.
Just to clarify my comment a few minutes ago, Jalen Ramsey and Kader Kohu are the only two players who haven't spent more than 1 year in Miami. And to me, I think that's what gives this group the biggest edge. That Brian Flores, Josh Boyer defense is so unforgiving on cornerbacks. They put so much on their plate. They have so much trust in these guys. Xavien Howard thrived in that system. Nick Needham became a stud in 2019 as someone who was just thrown into the fire as an undrafted free agent. Keon Cross, Trill Williams were also in that defense. So for me, I kind of look at this group as the leaders of the unit because they've just had to do so much for so long. And when we kind of look at the group as a whole, you're wondering, hey, that slot cornerback position, Kader Kohu, it's awesome. He started 13 games last year. I think Nick Needham, when he was healthy, was actually one of the higher graded nickel cornerbacks according to PFF. So right there, man, that's a great fight to have. You see defense, or excuse me, offenses going four wide, put them both out there, and I will have no fear in the world. But Marek, we are glowing about this group. What still needs to happen this offseason?
I don't know if there's anything that really needs to happen in the cornerback group. I don't know if that's taking the easy way out. I guess earlier today, if we would have recorded this in the morning, I would have said, let's get some depth in there. But they did just re sign Justin Bethel, who honestly, he played really well when pressed into action last year. A lot better than I expected him to play, considering he has the label of a special teams ace only. But I thought he played decent. And Keon Crossan had his moments as well. You still have Noah Igbenogany. If you get anything from him, that's a bonus. I don't think
Changing the
Dolphins fans
coach.
are expecting much. Yeah. Kader Kohu, Jalen Ramsey, Xavien Howard, Trill Williams coming back, Nick Needham coming back. This is a solid group with some really good depth as long as they can overcome their injuries and come back healthy and come back strong. So I'm not sure there's much else you need to do outside of learn Vic Fangio's system, lock it in, be ready to rock and roll when this season starts.
Yeah, for me, it's. I mean, you said it. Stay healthy, right? This group is pretty much finalized. We might see some undrafted free agents. Chris Greer proved me wrong and draft someone. I don't know. I don't know if that's really going to happen with 4 picks. But yeah, stay healthy. You got Nick Needham coming off the Achilles. Trill Williams' knee injury. Howard, we mentioned it. Both groins. So to me, it's just hey, let's walk through that game of don't break the ice this preseason. Let's get everyone healthy going into the season. There are always going to be those random injuries. It comes with football and it's hard to predict. You could never see it coming. I refuse to agree or believe there's something called someone being injury prone. I don't know why. I just refuse to believe that someone's more prone to be injured while you're playing these physical sports where you're going to get injured no matter what. So, Barrick, to wrap this up a little bit, what does this unit look like on the field in 2023?
I think we touched on it earlier when I was going over Mike Clay's projection for the 2023 season, and I think this looks like the best cornerback tandem between Jalen Ramsey and Xavien Howard in the NFL in 2023. I wouldn't be surprised to see at least 10 to 12 interceptions between the two. This is a defense that is able to turn the ball over well as long as they can master Vic Fangio's scheme. I think this will be the strength of the defense, as you mentioned earlier, and I'm just excited for games to get started. Unfortunately, we're 6 months away, but we'll see it sooner than later.
I wanted to say that they'd instantly off the top of my head be a top 5 team in turnovers in Vic Fangio's, zone 3-4 defense. But I mean, it's going to be like, it's no surprise that the Dolphins are going to have a lot of playmakers in that secondary. So this group, I wonder what it's going to kind of look like. Are the Dolphins going to sacrifice yards still? Are they going to be that bend and don't break group? Or our opposing offense is going to just say avoid it for the most part and try to just attack either the middle of the field or run the football? And that brings up the question, what would look great? Do the Dolphins have to be top 10 against the run, top 15? Is Christian Wilkins and that defensive front enough to keep both, a pass defense and a rush defense in the top 15? I think that'll be interesting to see just the chess match of, I adjusted to your adjustment and now you're adjusting to that adjustment type of, what was that, Princess Bride type argument?
Yeah, and typically that would be the way to attack a Fangio defense is to run the ball well. Light boxes, he's known for that. We'll get into these different position groups as we move along, but it's going to come down to having some stout defensive linemen and some stout linebackers in this defensive unit. But as far as cornerbacks go, I think we're set. I think between Jalen Ramsey and Xavien Howard, you couldn't have asked for a better duo, and I'm excited to watch them work.
There's no doubt about that. And all preseason, I'm gonna eat up every drone video, every tweet. I'm gonna be a sucker for all of it. I already know. But that is our Dolphins detail. There is one more thing we ask. We need your details. Let us know what you think in the comment section below. And if you're liking the show, please, please, please hit that subscribe button as we continue to do these things throughout the offseason. Thank you for joining us. We'll talk to you next time.